Well, that was perfect timing. All right. Here we go. So, I don't want to do this one. But if we get one viewer, I'll do it. Okay. So, welcome everyone. Good evening. I desperately don't want to do this virtual tour, but I was told in no uncertain terms that I needed to. So we're going to do it and get it out of the way. And I'm hoping to sneak it in the middle of a Monday night, and then we can just be done with it. But if anyone has questions, I will answer them. And I'll just do my best to give you guys some backstory so that at least when I'm out guiding, it seems more credible. Preach. Okay. So, where to begin? I'm from Eastern Washington originally, and I've got a great picture of that real quick here. Like all people from true Eastern Washington, had a sweet agricultural upbringing, a life of adventure, excitement, and exploration. Come from a pretty adventurous family. So pretty early on, they got me out and exploring the world. Both my parents really encouraged me to venture out. So New Zealand and Guatemala were some of my first big international trips. And that I think has really informed my desire to see the world and to explore it. So while we're talking about things that I'm passionate about, I would say in no particular order, it's nautical seafaring, archery, exploration, having a flair for the dramatic, and my family. I'm also particularly fond of this game where you always have to be touching a large wooden chest and while blindfolded, swing a sack of salted cod and try and hurt the other person. That's just classic. Something else that I think will really help you understand the story of Chris Staudinger is that I used to have really incredible hair. I don't think that's an understatement at all. So pretty early on, right after high school, I decided that I should just on a whim, I don't know how it got into my head, but I was like, you need to go become a captain. So I left. I took a bunch of sea education courses, got a captain's license, kicked around for a while, and then eventually ended up at Pacific Lutheran University. And I don't even know why I chose PLU. Something just called me deep down inside. So there I went. And I didn't stay at PLU for long. I did 1 year there. And then I decided that I wanted to get back out on the water. So I took not necessarily a year off, it's more like a year on, and did Sea Education Association and Seamester. Both are very cleverly named. And so I spent quite a bit of time on a tall ship as we navigated across the Pacific Ocean and ended up in Tahiti. Then I ended up on another ship and we ended up going all the way around, circumnavigating the globe before I ended up back in California. And then continued on my way back to Pacific Lutheran University, where I did my last 2 years. And I still had really great hair. It was so great that even the Great Wall of China was impressed by it. You can't make this stuff up. At some point, I ended up traveling on a J term. It was my last big college trip. And so I ended up taking the month of January and taking a documentary course in Tanzania, where I was going to climb Kilimanjaro. And that is where everything changed for me. I met Tawny, my wife, on this, well, not the summit. That's not the first time I met her, but I met her in Tanzania while we were climbing Kilimanjaro. And that was a pivoting point for me. Because from there, we knew that we wanted to spend essentially the rest of our time together, and we didn't really know what we wanted to do other than to travel the world and explore. And the first thing that I recommended was that we should go be ranch hands in Australia. And she countered with au pairs in Germany. And so I bought one-way tickets to Spain, and she refused to go with me. And that was kind of how we figured each other out. I have to give Tani credit, because the recommendation that she came up with that ended up being the thing that we did was move to Korea and teach English. So we were only supposed to spend 6 months in Korea teaching English at first, but we fell in love with it. And so we ended up staying there for 2 years. And that's when we really established ourselves with the Captain and Clark brand. And I think this is a big, that's just a big part of something that you should know in general of me as a guide, is that I think a lot of guides come at this whole thing with more of a historian background. And mine is really in video documentary and journalism. Captain and Clark, Captain Chris Staudinger and Tani Clark, we documented all of our time living in this town called Pohang in South Korea. And we did everything we possibly could. Pretty much right out the gate, I bought Tani a motorcycle while we were there. And so we just cruised all around South Korea, just trying to do the craziest stuff ever, and filming it the entire time, mostly in the beginning, just so that we could send, videos back home and people would know that we hadn't died in Korea. But we started to get more and more of a taste for it. And eventually we got to the point where we were starting to win some awards for everything. So we carried on with it, and Captain and Clark became the thing that we did. So when we moved back from South Korea, for years, we were photojournalists, video journalists, and we would travel around the world chasing these cool stories, from mystic tattoos in the Philippines to tiger parks and whether they were or were not ethical in Thailand. We were some of the first people to be allowed to do video documentary of the Ashura Festival in Bahrain. And part of the reason I didn't want to do this tour at all is that all of this is available for anyone online. There's no reason for me to be doing this. In fact, here, I can take you to, where are we? Here we go. So Captain and Clark is still a functioning website up online. If you're ever curious about the adventures of Captain Chris Staudinger and Tani Clark, we have gone through and done a pretty, I'm gonna say a pretty fantastic job documenting everything here. And the whole time that we were bloggers and vloggers, we were also working. Tani worked for National Geographic. We both worked for USA Today. We were both brand ambassadors and content creators for the Expedia brand. Costa Brava, Alberta, Matador TV, Trip Films. We were kind of doing it all for a long time there. And then we got married in Leavenworth. And shortly after that, Tani thought she had a pretty horrific case of food poisoning from some bean dip. And it turns out she was pregnant. So for me at that point, that's when I was like, okay, we're going to have to make some changes in our life, because we can't travel 8 to 9 months out of the year right after giving birth and still make a living out of that. So what we ended up deciding to do, and by we, I mean, I came up with the idea to rekindle a passion of mine from my youth. So when I was 8, I started my first tour company in Leavenworth, where I was living at the time. Leavenworth, Washington, Bavarian village of joy and mirth. And I used to give people tours around the town. I had a little board that I could put on the back of my bicycle, and $5 a tour is pretty awesome. Not gonna lie. I'm not saying I was the best tour guide in town, but certainly the most entrepreneurial at the time. And I kind of always knew that I wanted to do this. The thing that I love and am most passionate about is exploring something. I love just knowing what's behind the door and then sharing that with people, because I think people are equally curious and they should have the opportunity to get to experience the world that way. So I made this whole like pitch plan. I had Post-it notes that were like, here's all your anxieties, and you'd flip up the Post-it note and it'd be like, but here's the solution we could use. And so while Tani was 8 months pregnant, I told her that we should start a tour company in Tacoma. And shockingly, she agreed to it. Not as shockingly as her agreeing to marry me with that glorious hair, which I know what you all want. We're going to go back to a few more pictures of that hair, because honestly, it's incredible. So here I am filming in Korea, learning to use a sword in Korea. Here we are in the Galapagos, you know, the usual. Then this is the Taj Mahal here, which is where we got engaged. Going way out of order with this, but like I said, it's all online, so you can piece it together on your own. Wow. Look at that woman. Oh, yeah. For a period of time, we also were co-guests on a couple episodes of Janet Shay's Fun Taiwan TLC series. You should YouTube that. Really great stuff. Tani was very pregnant for that when we were in Taiwan, just taking increasingly dangerous challenges through the country. Oh, good times, good times. I really do miss that hair sometimes. I think I'm alone in that, though. Here we go. So one of the other things that made the transition to the tour company super smooth was that Paul and I had been friends for years. So we were friends back at PLU. We'd been in a lot of plays together, because in case you hadn't already figured it out, I did have a theater background at PLU as well. And so we had been on several adventures together already. And so it made it a really easy sell, I think, for Tani to be like, we can keep doing this sort of journalism gig, transition it to a tour company, and then still lean on the people that we've always relied on the most. And that can't be stressed enough. There's no way that Tani and I could have done this without Paul's support, help, and expertise, and that of his wife, Jackie, as well. And together, the four of us have built something I'm really genuinely proud of here, where we lean on that journalism theater background to investigate these places, not just in Tacoma, but in the surrounding area, and then to present them in a way that's engaging. Because as a journalist, I have been on approximately, I'm going to say modestly, 1,500 tours in my lifetime. We've just been on all these comped tours that we used to write about and promote for different brands. And I've learned a ton about what I love about tours, and maybe even more specifically what I hate about tours. I'm not going to tell you the ones that I hated the most, but if you ever secret message me, I will tell you some of the absolute worst in the world. But I think it was important to me to have something that was enriching, educational, but not overly historical. Like, you don't want to just get preached at the whole time. Personal opinion. So that's sort of the backstory of the whole thing. We've taken this career of traveling the world, trying to film it and share it with people, and then had the opportunity to build a brand and a lifestyle for ourselves here in Tacoma, and give us the opportunity to raise our two pretty extraordinary children. Well, I'll put these pictures up of them on Facebook. If I start going through photos of my kids right now, it's going to take all night. But they're a big part of not only why we do what we do, but, you know, encouraging our moral and ethical compass through the city, because we want them to look back and be like, our parents were actually pretty cool when they were here in Tacoma, starting their own tour company. So with that, hopefully I've got this out of the way and Tawny will stop hassling me about doing it. If you guys have any questions, I will be happy to answer them right now. But honestly, the whole Captain Clark story is on CaptainClark.com. You guys already know me. There are a lot. If you go to the Captain and Clark YouTube video or YouTube channel, Captain and Clark YouTube channel, there is literal hours of Tawny and I traveling the world for various brands and putting that up online. Some of it, like if you go back to the very beginning, super dodgy, not the best production value. Some of my favorites are Korean Penis Park. That's worth a look. Our time falconing in Bahrain. And probably if you look up Sak Yant, which is in Thailand, not the Philippines. I don't know what I was saying earlier. We did witches and healers in the Philippines, magical tattoos in Thailand. Often I find myself saying stuff like this to Paul, and I realize that it sounds super ridiculous and sort of annoying. So our catchphrase, the safety word is, and then I found myself smoking hookah in Marrakesh. If you ever say that to me, I know to rein it in, because I don't want to sound like a terrible person bragging about his exploits, but sometimes it just happens. So from there, I appreciate you guys tuning in for this. I'm now probably going to log off because I don't think anyone has any huge questions. But yeah, check out CaptainClark.com. It has all the best information about our previous exploits, some of the best pictures of my hair, and all of the really, really good ones of our adorable children. So from there, thank you guys so much. And very sincerely, I appreciate all of you for making this a reality. Tacoma has one of the greatest communities and just lands of opportunity that I've ever experienced. And with over 64 countries under my belt, I've had the opportunity to compare and contrast, and I really genuinely love it here. And I think there's a lot of cool stuff here that people have an opportunity to sort of explore fresh almost every day, which is the origin of Pretty Gritty, in case you're interested. I've always wanted to focus our tourism and guiding on places that aren't in the first rung. You know, I think there's a sincerity and a wonder to places that are secondary locations. So while the tourism market of Seattle is super saturated and it gets a lot of business, and it was a calculated struggle to start a tourism company in Tacoma, I think it's paid off because the amount to see and do here is rich and exciting, and it doesn't get the attention that it deserves. And if I can do anything in my life, it would be to bring attention to places that deserve it but don't get it. So the places that are pretty, even when they're gritty. Okay, so I'm going to put the link in the comments right now. CaptainandClark.com. You can find our Instagram is Captain and Clark. Our Twitter was Captain and Clark. Our website, our YouTube, everything is Captain and Clark. No E on the Clark. Captain just the way you think it should be spelled. So with that, thank you guys so much for joining me for this impromptu moment. And above all, thank you for joining us on these tours throughout the South Sound. Let's keep exploring. I'll see you guys soon. Thanks.